Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid, a channel I'm creating not just to bring the awareness of the lived reality complex trauma creates and removal and adoption and foster care trauma creates, but I really want to get into the understandings from the decades of my own personal experiences with this, as well as what I learned over many years being an advocate and a practitioner, to try to bridge the gap of complexities around the mechanisms behind removal trauma and what it actually means and how to heal it and how to understand what it is to live with it in a broad enough way that it can cover as many variations as possible, because in reality our own individual interpretation is our own. And as many adoptees and as many of those that have found places that have gone through foster care, each individual one of us has our own perspective on this. So I'm just trying to do it in a broad enough way to try to explain it in a way that, as many of the demographics of this, get a benefit. Now, yes, this is the next video in the adoption series. And I've lost count of the amount of times I've heard this statement made and the complexity and the difficulties in answering the consequences of this statement. I've heard it so often where an adoptee or somebody that has gone through foster care at some point goes, "My life is a lie. I am a lie. Everything I am is a lie." What do we do with this, and where does it come from? The reality of trying to explain this to somebody that hasn't experienced removal trauma and adoption and placement through either foster care or adoption is extremely challenging to grasp, because the world outside of us goes through with words. The base of that, "my life is a lie," is who is my mom, who is my dad. When you're looking at adoption, when you're looking at long-term placement, post-foster care, the people that raise you, society says that's your mom and dad. But are they? When you come from a base of where you have more than one set of mothers and fathers, you got your biological mom and dad, you've got those that are raising you as mom and dad, you've got two separate sets of families. You've got potential siblings from a biological standpoint, your brothers and sisters. You've got potential siblings within the adoptive family and potential foster care. And sometimes those siblings are biological children of those that are raising you, and you're not. There are so many layers of complexity to this that words will never fix. When the outside world tells us, well, those that raised you as your mom and dad, you should be grateful, you need to accept that, only further separates us from anyone being our mother and father and that real sense of feeling that our life is a lie. Where this begins is going on a standpoint of a child being adopted and raised and always, being informed you are adopted, we brought you into our family. The fog, the avatar that's created, the survival state that is unavoidable is all part of this mechanism. But putting even that to one side for a moment, and you're looking at, okay, what were the reasons that the adoptive parents chose to adopt a child? What are their expectations? What are their requirements and emotional needs that need to be met? What are the reasons they chose? Now, in the rare instance where people have chosen to become adoptive parents to fulfill the needs of a child that was taken, removed, or in foster care, whatever the circumstance, that is rare. Where they're focusing not on their own emotional needs to be fulfilled, but more on creating a connection, a safe and loving family for that infant or child to grow up in. That, in the adoption reality, is rare, very rare. And there are varying scales of that level of commitment. When you look at, a couple that cannot conceive children or have had miscarriages and so forth, that adds layers of emotional complexity. So there is those requirements that need to be met with the hope that this is a functional family. And that plays a part in this process of identifying who's my mum and dad, because part of our avatar is I have to meet their needs and wants to have a family, to be here, to be able to be part of this. So I will shape my interpretation of who is my mother and father, who's my mum and dad, by meeting their needs at the expense of my own. That usually happens in the beginning, and sometimes that carries all the way through. But what happens when it falls down? Hence that my life is a lie. What can trigger the starting of the falling down is if you go to a doctor as an adoptee, regardless of age, the doctor's going to ask medical history, family medical history. Well, they're not your biological parents. They can't give your family biological history, and as adoption by design is to remove and separate you from all your biological information, the majority of adoptive parents never have access or don't have the child they're adopting's family medical history. Or if they do, it's extremely vague, generic, and usually a lie. It's usually a few things that the adoption agencies put forward because their focus is on placement and making their business viable. So what does that do when it's done in front of a kid or an adolescent or a teen or even an adult? It immediately separates you because I'm different than they are. If in the cases where, the child is not told they're adopted and the adoptive family put forward their family medical history, that can end, and I'm aware of cases where that has ended disastrously. It has ended the life of the illness was misdiagnosed, misread completely, and it has the ultimate negative outcome because of that. So there are instances where even the assumption that, well, if you just don't tell, you'll get away with it, doesn't work. So there's this instance, family medical history. Then you have cross-cultural interrace adoptions, where the adopted child's of a different race than those raising them. Putting aside all the cultural components and all the differences in skin color, hair color, styles, build, everything of that. Society goes, why are you different than your mom and dad? Why are you a different color? Why do you look differently? Why do you behave differently? And even when you're of the same race and the physical similarities are close, they're still not exact. And the thing about schools, kindergartens, primary schools and so forth, they're cruel environments. And kids are unforgiving if they notice any difference, and they will latch on and they won't change. And then you have the instance of how do you explain if I have two moms or two dads when you're looking at same-sex couples adopting. All this falls upon a young child to interpret. And all of this feeds into who is my mom and dad. I feel this, those that are raising me feel that. I'm trying to smile, they say I look angry. There's all these instances that build this aspect of the fog that isolates us because we are different. And there is no way to explain that because every movie, all the TV shows and books and fairy tales and stories talk about having one mom and one dad. How do you make sense that you have two sets or three sets or four sets depending on how many placements in foster care? How is an infant and a young child supposed to reconcile that within them? What more often happens, we dissociate, we separate, and we repress. But at some point, that's going to rear its head. When it rears its head, my life is a lie. And what comes from that, depending upon the age, if it happens later in life, what I've seen personally with late discovery adoptees that I've personally known is the outcomes are not very good. And one close person that I knew, he passed within 6 weeks of finding out that he was an adoptee. He always said he always had a feeling, but his body just stopped, devastating his family, his wife and family. So This is very real. This is not something words can fix. This is where society goes, there, your mum and dad, just accept it, be great. That won't fix this. This goes into the core neurophysiological components of being a human and belonging. What does a mum and dad mean? Well, a mum gives birth to you, brings you into this world. A father is supposed to support and protect the mother to do so. The reality of this is your mum and dad open the pathway for you to be part of this society and this world. You take their name and you are part of them as they prepare you to engage and walk and build a life in the society. When you're different, society doesn't open the door. Society closes doors and isolates you. So a lot in the beginning stages pretend. But when this collapses into my life is a lie question comes up, all doors close. And we need to ourselves find a way to not only rebuild after this, but understand what the hell happened and how do we make sense of this. And it is only within circles of adoptees that there is any real understanding of this, or those that have gone through foster care. And we build our camps of survival. But again, that's not engaging with the world. What I hope from this video, because I've not found a solution to this, because Western societies haven't evolved to understand this as what it is. In indigenous societies and old world societies, I am the adopted son of is common. I am the adopted daughter of is common. The process of why I am here is commonly understood and accepted by the people, and you were seen as part of that community from that standpoint, and you are not diminished as a result of it. But in the Western society, if anything's different, it is wrong, it is persecuted, and it's outcast. So what I hope with this video is to create a little bit of an understanding of this is what this means. This is what is partially going on, and the complexity of what goes on inside is far greater than this. And it is soul tearing apart stuff. And I just want you guys out there that are not that are not adoptees that may watch this to the end is really think about what does it mean to try to make sense of who is my mum and dad when you have a biological set and a placement set and however many countless others in between. I love you guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe. And I hope this video makes sense, and I'll see you all next time.